ready.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Christopher Potter, and I'm a wildfire scientist with over 30 years of experience working for NASA. That's the country's space agency, and also with local communities who are impacted and dealing with the consequences of wildland fires. I've studied wildland fire and the urban interface using satellite imagery and ground measurements for really all of the most destructive fires in the Western United States. And I myself live in a high risk wildfire zone in Northern California. Today, we're going to hear from our special guest about their close encounter with one of the most recent and devastating wildfires that have occurred in the past several years in California. Um, since it happened a year ago, that is the Eaton Fire um, near and into Altadena, California, which is near Pasadena, California, in Los Angeles County. Um, since it happened a year ago, this is not a breaking news report, of course, but it's another episode in the podcast we call When Wildfire Comes, during which our guests will recount their firsthand observations of the wildfire approaching and burning in their town and community, and then of course most importantly the lessons that came out of it, to be learned from such a tragic event that we might prevent such events or deal with them in a more beneficial way for everybody in the future. So our special guest today is Kelly Etter. Kelly is a survivor of the Eaton Fire. And just to give the audience, the listeners, a little bit of background, Kelly, before I turn it over to you, I'll tell them about the Eaton Fire, basic facts. It began on January 7th, 2025, in a place called Eaton Canyon, which is in the San Gabriel Mountains near Altadena. And at the same time that fire began and ignited, there were extremely strong Santa Ana winds from the north, driving down the fire down into the communities in the foothills below, and particularly into Altadena. Um, the fire really progressed rapidly over the next 24 hours, and it destroyed over 9,000 buildings, structures in the city there. At least 19 people lost their lives. So this became the one, top five deadliest and the second most destructive fire in California history. Um, and it burned for another 24 days until it was fully contained by the firefighters in Los Angeles County. But today we're going to hear from Kelly. So, Kelly, please tell our listeners about who you are and when you lived in Altadena, what things were like there, and then we can go into the days that when the Eaton Fire started. Welcome,
Okay,
Kelly.
great. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Christopher. So, as you said, I'm Kelly Etter. I'm a certified Pilates and movement educator, as well as a nervous system and trauma-informed resilience and transformational coach. And for the last 25 years, I've helped hundreds of people break free from pain, physical pain, and the emotional pain of not being able to trust their body to support them in everything they want to do. For the last 15 years, I ran a community Pilates studio in Altadena that helped people feel strong, safe, and at home in their bodies. And some of what I liked most about being in Altadena was the quiet. It was very, very peaceful and quiet. There were lovely songbirds, house finches, I believe they were, that would come sit on the branches of the bougainvillea that had an archway over my gate leading to the back to the studio. And I would have my cup of tea in the on the couch by the living room window and listen to them. And also being able to walk up to the top of Farnsworth Park and then down through the park. There was quite a community of people who walked dogs and they would meet in the park or just on the street. And it was also very diverse ethnically, age-wise. There were it was a multi-generational community and interests. It was very diverse. There were Caltech scientists and there were artists there and other movement educators like myself, teachers. It was a very eclectic community, yet very much a community, very friendly and welcoming. And yeah.
Yeah, it sounds just great. The kind of community you'd want to live in. And you did live
Exactly.
there for how long
I lived
before
there
the fire?
before the fire, almost 15 years,
Hmm.
like 14 and a half years. I had moved there when the marriage to my son's dad ended. And so I needed peace and quiet. And it was a very supportive place to be. And actually, the home had had a lot of glass on the back of it. So it looked out to the studio, which also had a lot of glass. So my son, who was 7 at the time, could be in the house by himself while I worked out in the studio. And he felt like, big man on campus because he was alone in the house. And
Hey, sure.
but I could still kind of see, what room he might be in. So
That's great. Was it a one-story home, two-story home?
it was a one-story home. It had vaulted ceilings with exposed beams. And I'm forgetting what it's called. There's a certain kind of plaster, one of the Venetian plaster on kind of the main wall that separated the public space, the living room, kitchen and dining room from the bedrooms and bathrooms.
Hmm. Yeah. And your neighborhood, I know that the fire started moving into the city from the northeastern direction that when it did, correct? Where was your house located geographically, north, south, east, west in Altadena?
It was just west of Lake, which I guess has kind of been considered the dividing line between what is East Altadena and West Altadena,
Hmm.
about 3 blocks west of Lake Avenue, and then another 2 or 3 blocks north of Altadena Drive, um, which runs north-south near the Eaton Canyon where the fire started, and then at a point it turns, makes nearly a 90-degree turn, and is running east-west.
I see. Uh-huh. Yeah. What did you you said you lived on a relatively quiet street then, and
Yeah.
there weren't many businesses around.
No, I'm not even sure where she was. It was a residential area. There were a
Hmm.
handful of people that worked up from their homes or had the 2-car garage had been converted into a rec room or a workspace. And that's what my studio was. It was like that when I moved in. It was already a rec room.
Yeah, I see. And were the houses in that neighborhood really close together, or did they have, fairly large spaces between them?
No, they're fairly close together.
Hmm. Yeah, that's typical of most small towns in California, where we have, well, I guess you'd consider not high density, but medium density residences with and always fences between them, right, for privacy. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it's not
Yep.
like we have open yards with our dogs running around like that. Um, yeah, so I think it gives a pretty good picture of the setting of your house and your business was also there, I take it.
Yes. It was
Okay.
behind my aunt.
How far away was the business from the house, or was it in the backyard there?
It was in the backyard there. It
I
was,
say, okay,
yeah.
yeah, great. So maybe in, 10, 15 minutes or so, could you just start from the day's events, when the fire started, and tell us what happened when you know, in the morning, um, or whenever you want to start, the what kind of day was it? Was it a typical day or weather-wise and climate-wise, as far as you were concerned?
We had had really high winds the day before too, on that Monday, I guess it's the 6th, starting I don't remember whether it was afternoon or evening, but certainly evening and through the night. There were very strong winds. I could hear it howling under the doors. They weren't completely sealed.
Mm,
And I woke the morning of the 7th, Tuesday morning, to discover that bougainvillea I mentioned that was planted near the northeast corner of the house. It arched up and over the gate to the fence that led back to the studio, back to my business. Why
mm,
it had been, so it was, I don't know, 10 feet, 12 feet tall. It had been ripped off the house and the fence, and it was laying in the walkway to the back. So I was texting clients saying that we needed to, sending them Zoom links saying that we would need to do their sessions virtually. And then I don't remember at what time specifically, but later in the afternoon, we got notification from SCE that there might be power outages due to the wind. So got candles ready.
hmm.
And
And that's Southern California Edison, your utility company?
excuse me. Yes,
Hmm.
yes. SCE, Southern California Edison. And then it wasn't actually until, so we were just we had candles and, hunkered down in the house because it was so windy. And it was about 6:30, actually, I say about, but I'm pretty darn certain it was 6:38. I got a text notification on my phone from LA.gov saying that there was an evacuation warning and to check the Genesis app for more details. So I got on my laptop and checked the Genesis app, and I was able to type in my exact street address. And I thought, oh, this is awesome.
Hmm.
And I did, and it showed the zone I was in as being normal, and the next zone east as being normal, but then two zones east having the evacuation warning. And this pattern of getting a notification on my phone from the LA.gov directing me to the Genesis app, and the Genesis app showing my zone as being normal continued for 3 hours.
Mm.
And I had friends texting saying, "Hey, are you okay? I think it's awfully close to you. And if you need to evacuate, you can come stay with us." And I kept responding saying, "Thanks so much. No, I'm good. The Genesis app shows that it's two zones east, and it went from the evacuation warning to the evacuation orders, but still it was only showing that in the zone that was two east of me, not my zone.
Right.
So it
And
wasn't until, go ahead.
and could you see or
Yeah,
anything out the door that was unusual or out the windows or smell anything like smoke?
no, that's the thing that's wild. I chuckle because yeah, that's what I was about to say, that it wasn't until the 3 hours later at like 9:38 when the power went out and it was dark. And so I turned and noticed out the window a red plume of smoke that was maybe two streets over, if that. It was blocks away. And so essentially then just shouted, "Okay, we've got to go and we got to go now." And
Wow.
that's probably what was scariest, because I had gotten lulled into this sense of, no, where I am is fine. Because I was counting on that text in that Genesis app and not even really looking to my own resourcefulness. And so that's certainly a lesson. I think that with all of our tech these days, I think that has become a habit for many of us, is to count on it rather than, think for ourselves or explore for ourselves. And
Right.
so, yeah, I'm a little chagrined, but I was sitting back to the window that showed me that, looking at, doing work on my laptop and going back and forth between the phone and the site on the laptop, the Genesis app. So yeah, scrambled to grab a handful of things, tried to pull, I had an antique China doll that was a family heirloom, and I tried to pull it off the wall to take, but my house was fireproof. My house was not fireproofed. It was earthquake proofed. So the doll was the it was also in an antique clock case, and it was so well mounted to the wall that I couldn't get it off. I had to just leave it there. I didn't even think to grab my son's artwork, my mom's artwork off the walls.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, that's probably the part that still brings the layers of grief is the loss of those things. You know, okay, yeah, the personal property list, the structures, those are losses and a bummer, but the sense of safety and security, then what the life I thought I was living, the future I thought was unfolding, that all just kind of, bad joke, went up in smoke, up in flames. And
Yeah, in a matter of a couple hours, everything changed. And
exactly.
yeah, and did you hear any sirens going off at the time? Or I mean,
I
were there
honest,
first responders starting to do anything? Could they do anything?
I don't know if they could do anything or not. I honestly don't remember hearing sirens. There certainly could have been some, but it's it, my nervous system just took such a hit when I went from being calm, thinking I'm fine. I got evacuation warnings before, and I have my to-go box and never wound up needing to leave. Yeah, there was some ash that had blown onto the surface of the property. But so my nervous system work, why we talk about kind of flipping our lid, the prefrontal cortex, which is our executive function area and reasoning, kind of just went
Uh-huh.
offline. It
Yeah,
went
you went to fight or flight probably at that point, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely went to fight or flight. I can even feel my body starting to do a little bit of that revving up right now. So I honestly don't remember if we saw emergency vehicles. I remember just gray, dark gray, lots of smoke, little red embers in the sky as we drove to the hotel.
Uh-huh. This was about what time that you actually left the house?
10, 15 p.m.
Uh-huh. Everything was pitch dark because the other than these embers because of the power up being out.
Yeah.
Wow. That's got to feel weird too. Just
It
not having street lights to find your way through, right?
Exactly, exactly. It was just incredibly surreal. And probably the scariest part was the uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing, yeah, not knowing whether the evacuation would be enough. But honestly, I didn't even, and I've heard many people say this, so I'm not alone in the thought of not being able to return in a day or two didn't even cross my mind. It just
Mm-hmm.
didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so later, waiting to find out, what was left, if anything's left. That limbo is just, it's really emotionally brutal, and it's something a lot of people don't talk about. But when everything that familiar disappears, it's just really hard to regulate yourself and be able to think clearly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You're you're thinking, I'm sure let's just get out of this right now into someplace safe. And so you got in a vehicle and drove which direction?
Southwest.
Southwest. Okay.
Went to a hotel in Eagle Rock, which is a neighboring tower a few towns over south and west.
Mm-hmm.
And the wind was still really, we heard the wind and smelled smoke from under the hotel room door throughout
Wow.
the night. Yeah.
And
I'm
that was
not sure.
what, 10 miles away, 20 miles away
It
from
was
Altadena?
just I was just gonna say, shoot, I should have looked up how far away. Yeah, it's about 12 miles, I think.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Wow, it's not far. Yeah, and so the hotel you picked, was it someplace that someone had recommended that you go to? Then was there an official there that said go there and they'll
no,
take care of you?
no, we just started Googling on our phone and then calling,
Uh,
and places were full. And that one said, well, we're not full yet, but we won't hold a room, you know.
yeah.
So, and I misspoke. Eagle Rock is not that far away. It's like 5 miles away.
Oh goodness. Yeah. No wonder you smelled the smoke
Yep.
uh, and so then you were able to check into that hotel before midnight and then did you start watching TV about it or how did
No,
no?
couldn't. I know. I didn't want to watch. Yeah. I mean, watch TV in the lobby while waiting to check in,
Uh-huh.
but then just tried to get sleep.
Wow. Yeah. That's probably the best decision one can make because you're gonna the next day is gonna be um a tough one all overall for sure. So I admire that you could do that. Clearly, you're able to control your your uh, your emotions better than most of us, I guess. So
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. I think, well, there's the fight, flight, but they've also added the freeze, and or animals sometimes play dead when they're afraid.
yeah,
So I think maybe my system had maxed out on the fight flight response, all that cortisol, and then just was in the okay, just freeze mode, just lay there because I didn't get much sleep. I remember not getting much sleep because
yeah,
of
of course,
the wind and the smell and yeah, all the unknowns.
yeah. So all that night and maybe into the next day, homes and businesses, all many structures, as total of not over about 9,000 burned that during that period, correct? I mean, it didn't take that long before it swept
Correct.
right through the town.
Correct. My understanding is that because of the winds, they couldn't take helicopters up to drop the retardant that is often a big assist in
Yeah.
slowing down.
Yes, and of course, your local fire department is probably equipped to fight a couple structure fires at a time with the engines and hydrants they have available, like do two or three houses at a time. But now you've got hundreds at a time to try to deal with. So um, they're it's hopeless, really, right? Um, so yeah, and so at that time, I assume one structure is probably becoming the fuel for the next structure over too when the wind's driving it that way.
Yeah, it seems that way. I know I've heard a few stories of people staying behind to keep just using a hose, watering down their roof or the roof of the neighbor, and in one or two instances that actually worked, and in other instances they wound up getting smoked out. They finally had to abandon. I also heard, I don't get into the political stuff very much, so I haven't paid close attention and done any research, but I also heard that there was some trouble with not having enough water
Hmm.
um, in the hydrants, and also some trouble with, like you said, yeah, just not being equipped to handle that massive a burn area in the um, yeah, that there just weren't enough engines and firefighters going up there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, of course, there was another fire that was starting about the same
Exactly.
time, Pacific
Exactly. That
Palisades fire. So LA County Fire was probably already starting to be stretched thin from that, right?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but you got out. You're alive. Um, that's and that's of course the most important thing be grateful for. But it sounds like there were a lot of scary moments during those hours before you actually left the house. As you left, you just go back to, as you left the house. Could you see that there were a lot of that was like an ember shower around you at that point or not?
It it was more embers blowing, but not an ember shower that I remember seeing. But like I said, that it could be faulty. I really don't remember much between getting out of the house into the car and then arriving at the hotel.
Uh-huh. Wow. Yeah.
That part's just a bit of a blur. But yes, they were saying the way they explained, because there were two houses, I believe, on my stretch of the street that survived.
Hmm.
And I believe they were talking about it wasn't strictly the from one house to the next and the close proximity being the way it was fueled, the spread was fueled, but the wind picking up the embers and then carrying them. So if a big gust of wind picked up handful of embers and carried them 3 streets over, why that's why there'll be one street
Yeah.
that looked basically untouched. However, I don't know that there were any whole streets up near us that were untouched. What's wild, and I guess that phenomenon explains better the fact that the fire started at that tower in Eaton Canyon, the line that was down in brush, but the homes closest to there, those streets, I think sometimes they're referred to as the presidents because like their street names have the names of past presidents. Most of those actually were fine. It's as if the wind scooped up all the fire, all the ash, embers, excuse me, and
Hmm.
carried them over a few blocks, and
You're right.
then
Yeah, it could have just been that the way the ridge line or the topographic, features um, made the wind go, and it there was a little dead zone there maybe where they or maybe it was a very very windy area and they were carried right past it into a dead zone where they dropped in. Who knows?
mhm,
Um, we'll never know because
mhm,
there's never enough data after a fire like this to really do the analysis. I know that a lot of scientists. I just came from a meeting back in December where many scientists were trying to study, the trajectory of the fire and the embers or firebrands that came into the town that day and their spread. So, but that's all, that's all we have are sort of computer simulations of it in the end. Um, but and so then you were in the hotel then, same hotel for a while, or you were they?
no.
No, okay.
Fortunately, friends um in Huntington Beach area, actually, my husband's um a friend of his is a retired deputy fire chief. And
Hmm.
he called the next morning and said, "You guys need to get out of there. The air is terrible. We have plenty of room."
Yeah.
So we went and graciously stayed with them for they were graciously allowed us to stay with them for it was about 5 weeks, I think.
Oh, and that's down south of Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah, on the coast. Uh-huh. So when you did walk out and got in the vehicle to get out, could you smell the the bad air that day?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Wow.
And that yeah. Yeah, and that what was coming under the door all night during the at the hotel.
Yeah. I hope you didn't feel too ill about it, or in the days afterwards, too sick, to your with any sort of respiratory ailment.
Fortunately, no, I didn't.
That's great.
Be thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I guess the rest is uh, you know now in the category of recovery, um, um, with thousands of people um, dealing with their own individual. I'm sure every house every person has their own individual story on what it's going to take to recover, from the issues of emotions and trust, and then what kind of rebuilding resources they have right now, kind of insurance they might have had, um, that sort of thing. Every person's going to have a completely different and unique experience to recover from, I would assume.
Yes, it's interesting how there's similarities and unique things about each person's experience. But as you said, it became a full-time job, navigating, contacting FEMA and insurance and lender, and yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
just it was it was a nightmare that was real that we were walking through, kind of zombie walking through for a little while. I mean, I was so grateful for the people we were staying with. They had it on TV a lot and were gathering numbers to call. And so that's how, I mean, I realized call insurance right away. And that, yeah, that was wild too, talking about the surreal or circling back to that the next day. I didn't know we, how are we going to find out? We were just going to drive up there in a day or two. But then a woman from my Bible study table, texted saying a friend of hers had asked her to drive around and let her know about her house. And she said, I feel like I'm near your house. What's your address? And I told her. And a few minutes later, she said, I'm so sorry, and texted photos.
Mm.
And that was that was wild. That was like the body brain disconnect almost, or my body understood before my mind could really figure it out. My knees buckled and my breathing started getting really heavy, and I had to grab the countertop to make sure I didn't just crumple into a puddle on the floor because
Wow,
that,
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
yeah, it's intense. And I can't even imagine the people that stayed longer and watched their homes go up in flames. I just can't even imagine that.
Yeah, that's not only um I guess dangerous, but you know, will that would stay with you emotionally for forever. So probably better off not to see it.
Yes,
It's like
yes.
having your blood drawn. It's better just look away and while
Right.
they're sticking it in, right, and taking it, and
Right.
and um, and then when it's all over, you can look at it again. But so, how long was it before they let you go back and actually see your home site?
I believe it was a little while. I believe they were letting people the next week, but you had to show ID. They were trying to keep it protected because there was looting.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I honestly, again, I don't remember. The time was like going fast and standing still all at once. So I don't remember for sure when finally went. I wasn't really in a hurry since I'd seen the picture. I
mm-hmm.
wasn't really in a hurry to go stand in the devastation. Um, I just didn't feel the need to do that. I needed to just march along and do the things that needed to be done, dealing with the lender and insurance and the FEMA application and trying to
Mm-hmm.
salvage any sense of normalcy. So using Zoom to work with some of my clients, getting on Facebook, doing Facebook Lives, because I was waking up just panicked in the middle of the night. And so I would get on and do some nervous system nurturing work and figured there's somebody else that probably needs this too.
Yeah,
So yeah, ironically, when I was a little kid, a lot of kids have nightmares about like a boogeyman or something, but my nightmare was always fire. It was actually that the house was burning. So
really, even since you were a kid.
yeah, I haven't had that nightmare in years and years, but when I was a kid, that was my nightmare.
Hmm. Wow, the irony of that
Exactly.
doesn't
That's not lost on me, that
is
irony
not
there.
lost. No, no, on anyone hearing that. So, wow. Okay. Um, I guess then that um, you're then right now, or would you like to live in Altadena in the future?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
I'm planning on rebuilding. I'm moving through that process.
Hmm.
It, I think, again, it's just ironic where we are told not to make big or life-changing decisions under duress, yet here we were having to make these decisions under duress. I mean, this is still lasting. It's still, that's the thing with the wildfires. It's not just an environmental or a logistical event. It's also a nervous system event.
Hmm.
That understanding how trauma affects decision making and memory and recovery is is something that's essential to be able to support people. It's definitely changed my being this close to it has changed my view of what resilience is. It's not just bouncing back. People don't just snap back after wildfire loss. They need time, support, tools that help them restore a sense of safety in their bodies because we consider our homes our safe place and our safety. And then when that burns up, why it's yeah,
Hmm.
it strips away our illusion of having control over our lives and control in our lives. And the the key is being able to connection is one of the only things that remains, right? Connection to our neighbors, to the community.
Right.
For me personally, to the body is a source of grounding and resilience. And so, yes, I plan to rebuild. I want to be back in that community. I try not to dwell on things that might cause me to second guess that or not want to do that. Like the fact that part of the reason I was in Altadena was the peace and quiet, and it's going to be a construction zone for years.
For
Um,
sure.
and the fact that unfortunately many in the community, because of being underinsured, I don't know if anybody had enough insurance. I had insurance. I know a lot of people had insurance, but it's not enough to get me back to what I had. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I
so
mean,
the fact that there'll be a lot of people who don't rebuild, who have sold their lots or can't be there, why, those things are sad and will make it liable to make it kind of bittersweet being in Altadena, being back in Altadena rebuilt.
yeah. I mean, we get our
Mm.
insurance, the policy looks good and we get it, and then a lot of things happen between then when we have to use it, like just inflation, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
Material.
everything is
Yeah.
more expensive now,
And,
in our state, in our economy, and there's only so many people who can do the rebuilding too.
right.
So they're going to be in high demand. So
Exactly.
well, it's been so amazing to hear from you, Kelly, because you clearly have the mindfulness and a take on what happened to you, that is deeply thoughtful, and that we're lucky to hear from someone who makes that their living, I guess, to begin with, but lives that kind of life. So um, you do have a support group there or a survivors network that you participate in, is that right?
Yes, there's something called the Eaton Fire Survivors Network.
Mhm.
It's been amazing. It's and my understanding of how it came about was actually that it was a Discord channel for a small group of people that got together to play pickleball and tennis.
Hmm.
And that then, as the fire was coming, they were communicating on that Discord and checking in on each other. And then it progressed to sharing resources and it's grown and grown and grown. And I may be off. I honestly don't remember. I don't pay close enough attention to numbers in that respect. But if I remember correctly, I think the last time I heard about it, it was 6,000 members on that Discord, and it was started by, or it's really taken off because of a woman named Joy Chen. They've done a
Uh-huh.
lot. They've done a lot of press conferences and media to bring stories to light of people who have had even more challenge than I mean, it's certainly challenging and has affected me, and I'm really ready to not have so much nervous system response to it, even though I do so much of my own nervous system work. But at least I didn't have to fight, or much at least, with my insurance. But there were people that were not getting their insurance payouts. They were
Yeah.
being denied, etc. So yeah, so thank God that that group evolved, and there are many other groups that have evolved. That's probably one of the, if there's a silver lining to this
Mm.
disaster, to this tragedy, it's that yes, there was community before, but I believe this has really strengthened the community tremendously and helped unite instead of having smaller group. Like, for example, when one is in high school and there are cliques, right? There's the
Yeah.
whole high school community, but then there are subsections. Why I think this is really pulled everybody together into one big community. And people are really watching out for each other, encouraging each other, supporting each other. The Trauma Resource Institute has been amazing. They've been doing lots of presentations to train others. I got to take their training
Hmm.
to provide resources to help people navigate the the trauma and the stress on their nervous system and their mental health. And they've just been, yeah, they've been all over the place providing that and providing training for others, some of us who have gone through it, because it really helps to be in a community that's also shared the same experience. That's one of the things that came out of, I got to be a volunteer at the 1 year commemoration event that started with a press conference, but then anyone who was not a survivor was invited to leave, and the Trauma Resource Institute had about 12 facilitators, and we paired up
Hmm.
and invited the survivors to just go to whichever pairing they felt drawn to, and we were able to support them, lead them in just going around and sharing something that someone or something that's helped get them through this last year, or someone or something that has gotten them through challenging times before, helping resource them, or sharing an experience of generosity amongst all this tragedy. And it really helped people connect and be able to shift from being in that hyper vigilant nervous system state that many of us have been in. And it was also just apparent, a couple people pointed out that sure, being in community of their family or friends has been helpful too, to a certain degree, but they just don't get it. They're like, well, you should be excited because you get to have a whole new home, and you get to design it, and you get to decorate it. And well, okay, that is a nice bright side, but some of us, that's not exciting. To me, that's overwhelming. That's not
I
my
would think so. Hmm.
Yeah, that's not my jam. Now, if my mom hadn't been so deep in dementia, it would be less overwhelming because that was what she loved. So that could have been a great mother-daughter uh project. She would have helped, but
Yeah.
that's not the case. And it's not my it's not my fun place.
No, that is completely understandable. Um, so since we're recording this on the 23rd of January 2026, I assume this 1 year anniversary meeting just happened a couple weeks ago. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a couple Wednesdays ago.
And where do they hold it?
It was at a building in Altadena that is, I think the name of it has changed and now it's called the Collaboratory.
Uh-huh.
Early on, it was the Disaster Resource Center, and representatives from FEMA were there, representatives from the utility companies were there, representatives from SBA, because many of us have had to apply for a loan to do the rebuild, even though we're still paying our mortgage,
Hmm.
um, from a number of government agencies and also mental health support, uh,
Hmm.
insurance support, et cetera. We're all there for months, actually, following the fire. And it's just recently started transitioning over to the collaboratory that is a space that, yes, that event was there, and they have other events
Hmm.
in support of the survivors.
Yeah, that's great. It's wonderful to hear your community is getting even stronger than it may have been before. Like you said, that is a silver lining and a lesson that personal lesson, community lesson that we all take away from it. Um, Especially, of course, the survivors. Are is the community? I don't mean the community. Are um, the officials there in the town, the elected officials, the planning, land planning people? Are they communicating with you all about how they're going to try to make the town more fire safe in the future? Can they, you think, do that?
To a certain degree, yes. Some of the things are disappointing as far as, and again, I haven't paid as close attention as I'd like because I've been also trying to, this is a full-time job, the recovery, but I've also been trying to keep my business afloat and work with clients some.
Hmm.
So I've kind of taken a back seat and let the builder make sure that the plans comply. So I've just heard that there's a certain distance now from the home. I don't remember if I think it's 5 feet. Why
Hmm.
there can't be vegetation within a 5 foot perimeter around the home, which is that's that can help some, but that's not right. I mean, there needed to be water in the fire hydrants. There needed to be brush cleaned up from under the tower, SCE's tower.
Right.
So, but there are a number of requirements that have been implemented as fire suppression efforts.
That's good to hear. Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you live on what's called the wildland urban interface. Um, at least the people on the outside of the town, and it's a beautiful place to live most days, like you said, with the birds and the animals and the beautiful uh, mountain vegetation of Southern California. And it will, of course, it's growing back. Probably already has grown back quite a bit already.
Quite a bit, yeah.
So when you look up at the hills, they still look fire scarred to you.
Yes.
They do, huh? Yeah. Well, they're those plants are adapted to come back, and they will, of
Oh,
course.
yeah. They are
Yeah,
coming.
and um, it'll be beautiful, and it'll also be a risk that everyone in Southern California is trying to come up with compromises and solutions. Of course, I'm sure there have been many other lessons that have been learned. Probably don't have enough time in several podcasts to go over them, and it's a work in progress. People are still coming up with ideas, and but I really want to just thank you so much for sharing your personal feelings and experiences with us today, Kelly. You're clearly uh, unique in the way you have coped with it all, and it was a privilege to hear um, your mindset before,
Hmm.
during, after this event. So, um, were there any last comments you would want to make, or before I kind of close it out?
I guess that. Yeah, if there's one thing I would hope listeners would take away, it's that wildfire preparedness doesn't end with the things you were kind of speaking of, the fuel reduction maps, evacuation routes, satellite data. Those are all critical, definitely. It's just that the wildfire also changes people at a nervous system level, as we talked about a lot, and it
Hmm.
reshapes how we perceive safety, time, community long after the flames are out. So if we really want resilient communities, we need to also plan for that reality too. So if like you live in wildfire prone area, anyone who lives in wildfire prone area, I would encourage not to wait for a disaster to see how your body and your community respond under stress, but practice connecting with each other now, building relationships now, learning how to regulate your nervous system before you're forced into survival mode.
Yeah, that's that is such great advice, and something that I hadn't thought about until I talked to you today. I like everybody else. I think about, what is our fire department doing? What is our fire safe council doing? Which every county in the state has one, and but at the personal level, we've got to be ready. We've got to be ready um, to um, accept the advice from the first responders, and trust that they've got our best interest in mind. I'm sure, but then, uh, yeah. How does one mentally prepare for something like this? I think that's. I hope you write a book on it someday, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Maybe without it, I will.
because I don't even. Yeah, you
Yeah.
you're one of the few people I've ever talked to who have thought that deeply about it. So thank you so much. And this podcast will be aired in the not too distant future. We'll have others, um, uh, and because there seem to be as many, 10 times as many stories about wildfires in California or in the West as there are fires. So many people have been affected, and but yours is one of the first we've heard from someone who wasn't the firefighter, but the survivor. And I hope to do more like that, because I think we just get a whole new level of understanding, of living with it, and trying to understand what the long term effects will be. But there are lessons, that all of our listeners will take away from what you said today. So thank you so much, and of course we wish you the very best in your continuous recovery. Um, uh, I can tell you're gonna bounce back, I'm sure. And like your community, be more resilient and than you ever were before. So um, thanks so much, and we wish you the best. And so the listeners, please tune in again. We'll be having talks with other survivors, other firefighters, and stay fire safe, everyone. And like Kelly said, be both mentally and physically prepared, because it it can happen. It can happen to you. It can happen to your community when you least expect it, right, Kelly? So,
Indeed,
yeah.
indeed. Yeah. So really nurture your nervous systems.
Yes, yes. Take care of yourself. Put your oxygen mask on first, right?
Exactly.
Like they say
Exactly.
on the plane.
They
So,
got it right. They
yeah,
do.
great.
And that helps you in other areas of life too. Having a resilient nervous system helps in so many other areas of life too. But yeah, especially in something like this.
It
Thank you
does.
so much for all your good wishes and for being interested in my story and the stories of others. I really appreciate you, Christopher.
It's mutual, of course. So, thanks. We'll end it here, and tune in next time for another podcast on When Wildfire Comes. Bye now. Bye, Kelly.
Bye.